Hey, it's Valentina V, and welcome to 4-Minute Film School. Today we're talking about how to light with no lights. No, not like that. I meant like this. That's right, we're talking cinematic lighting with only natural light. Let's go. Now, a lot of people think that they need all sorts of gear to achieve cinematic quality footage, and that's simply not true. If you know how to shape natural light, how to use the sun to your advantage, when and where it's gonna be and at what time, you can get some pretty great cinematic images if you know what you're doing, whether you're indoors or out. So let's go see 3 setups right now. For our first setup, we are here in the bunker set at Beam LA, and it has a lot of windows. Now, if we want to use those windows, we can, but for this look, we don't want any light except for one window source. So we cover all of those up with flags, with duvetine, with other scraps of metal, and we have the one window that we open. This window provides indirect lighting, which is inherently soft. The bigger the source, the better, but for us, this window is perfect for lighting just the face in a medium. We introduced this black flag just to have even more contrast between the light, far side of the face, and the dark near side. Because a window is a real source, you can be very flexible with how you place the camera and what your framing is. For example, you could take the camera off the tripod, have it handheld. Any way you work it, if the window's in the shot, that's okay, because it's a natural light source. Because the light from the window is very indirect, it is also soft. It goes onto our subject and on our background, helping to create separation between our subject and the background. To that, we add haze, and all of a sudden we have this very moody, dramatic scene. And now we're outside, our mic died, so it's cell phone mic time. That's fine, you can hear me perfectly well. Of course, when you're outside, the best time of day to shoot is either in the morning or in the evening, but then you have this giant chunk of time in the middle of the day where the sun is overhead. How are you gonna use it? One way to do it is to find shade. If you can find shade and place your subject in the shade, you can use other objects, walls, other things in the area to bounce light and reflect light. The first thing I like to do is scout the location beforehand and use an app like Sunseeker or PhotoPills that's going to tell you exactly where the sun is going to be, exactly at what time of the day. So you can really take advantage of where the shadows are going to be. In this location, at first we had Giselle closer to the building, but we couldn't get that nice bounce happening from the direct light. So we had to move him a little bit closer to the garage so we could use both the garage door and that big foam bounce to give him a little bit more light on his face. Here we have a pretty common problem for filming outdoors in the middle of the day. You have a super bright, distracting background and a dark foreground. What do? First of all, get rid of that distraction by opening up your aperture. That way, everything in the back is going to be out of focus. Here we have a street, a bunch of lampposts, all of that. It's going to just be out of focus. But it's bright. So what do we do to counteract that, knock that down a little bit? We add an ND filter, but then the foreground becomes a lot darker. So 2 things. First of all, we introduce a bounce on the left side of frame, and that is going to bring up a little bit more light onto the face. Also, we wanted to give even more dimension to the face. So while the key light, the bounce, is on the far side of the face, the near side of the face, we added these floppies. What floppies are going to do, or maybe you could just use a black V flat, is just knock down the exposure and the brightness on that side of the face, give the entire scene a little bit more dimension. You also have to consider, how are you shooting this? Is it a close-up? Is it a medium? Is it a wide? Try to get those floppies as close to the edge of frame as possible. This is great because you can use these tips any time of the day. You just have to find some shade and you can make it work. For our last shot, here we are on the roof at sunset. Now, when you're shooting sunset, you only have about a 30-minute window where the light is bright and lit up, so you better take advantage of it. Every time the light goes down, you have to compensate for your exposure with taking off an ND filter, upping your ISO, or opening up your aperture. This is probably not the best for dialogue scenes. This is going to be great for music videos, dance videos. Don't be afraid to crush your foreground into the blacks to really make that sky colorful and make it pop. Let's take a look. Alright, shooting natural light, what have we learned? Number one, in order to give a little bit more shadow to your subjects, use negative fill. That way, there's more dimension across their face. Number two, if the sun is too bright, use ND filters to knock down that exposure while keeping your aperture wide open. And the third thing, if you don't want to shoot out in the middle of the day in bright sunlight, look for indirect light sources, like shooting in the shadows or shooting next to an open window on the opposite side of the building from the sun. That will give you nice, soft, beautiful cinematic images without a single light.